Hey everyone, Zeep here, and I have a problem to share with you guys. I've been playing the original 2009 Angry Birds on my phone recently, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, as it's reminded me of my childhood. The problem here is that, for other people who might want to play this game in the coming months, they are not going to have the ability to play the original because the developing company behind Angry Birds is taking it away from the App Store. And that's where I, Zeep, come in. You know, there's been a lot of lost mobile games ever since the invention of the cell phone that you cannot download by normal means anymore. This is going to be really interesting, guys, and it's going to reveal some heavy level nostalgia for all of you. Once again, I'm Zeepsterd. I love all of you guys. If you like this video, get this to 5,000 likes for a potential sequel to this, and of course, subscribe to Zeepsterd. We grow stronger every day. Let's get right to it. Kingdom Hearts V-Cast. You guys want to see something really trippy? So Kingdom Hearts, one of my favorite video game series of all time. So in order to understand Kingdom Hearts V-Cast, you need to know background information about the first game. The first game, although a little rough around the edges, has held up pretty well in my eyes. Listen, when it came to playing this game for the first time, back when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was more attached to the Disney characters rather than all the Final Fantasy stuff. I would really dread trying to do anything with the actual plot, and would really aspire to hang out with Donald and Goofy, and explore like the Aladdin and Nightmare Before Christmas worlds. I remember around this time in 2004 and 2005, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories had come out for the Game Boy Advance, followed shortly by Kingdom Hearts 2 in 2005, which I was also impressed by, which took everything in Kingdom Hearts 1 and made it so much better. But here's the funny thing I'm failing to mention. In between 2004 to 2005, Kingdom Hearts released another game. One for your cell phone. That's right, there was a Kingdom Hearts game for cell phone devices released in 2004. It is a game that is considered to be lost. So the game was made for Verizon Wireless broadband service, V-Cast. And if you happen to be signed up for it, you have the ability to download the game. An interesting thing about Kingdom Hearts V-Cast is that it wasn't actually developed by Square Enix, it was developed by the actual Disney company. Just look at the footage for this, isn't this like gnarly? It's kind of like oddly like mesmerizing in a way, seeing the Kingdom Hearts game run on a mobile phone from 2004. So to stress something, apparently this entire thing is not canon. I know, if you happen to be familiar with the Kingdom Hearts series, you would know that almost every little thing having to do with the video games is usually canon. But not this one. The creator decided that V-Cast was not part of the story whatsoever. And even if it was, it wouldn't really impact the entire timeline of Kingdom Hearts, because the plot for this is fairly simple. So Sora, Donald, and Goofy decide to go to sleep after traveling across the universe in their gummy ship. They put the gummy ship in autopilot, and suddenly while they're sleeping, a creature creeps up, kidnapping Donald and Goofy, with Sora having to go find them. We're not sure exactly where this takes place in the Kingdom Hearts plotline, if it even was canon, but if it was canon, it would probably take place during the events of the first game, just in between traveling to these various Disney worlds. Even with the simplicity of these mobile phone controls, Sora's able to move around. Besides running and jumping, he's able to climb trees and ladders, even grasp the edges of platforms, lift and throw objects, and he can even use the Keyblade to swing, alongside also using magic. Characters who appear in this mobile version of the game include Maleficent, Jafar, the Caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland, and a couple Heartless. As mentioned prior, the game is really a one-of-a-kind. It was designed as a tech demo to show off the V-Cast hardware that Verizon was trying to push, which eventually ended up not taking off. That being said, to diehards who love Kingdom Hearts, they've been wanting to play this game for nearly 2 decades. So that's why a bunch of them gathered together to try and restore this game so everyone could have the pleasure of finally playing this wonderful masterpiece. So this is actually a really awesome story. A bunch of fans gathered together and were hard at work at trying to find the files of this game. A bunch of them, just over time, were able to discover the files, dumping them online, leading to a group effort to finally unveil this game. To quote one of the individuals behind this project, "We thought this game was lost forever, but thanks to the community, Kingdom Hearts V-Cast is truly undefeatable." To some, they may look at this and be like, okay, who cares? But for people like me, and a lot of others who do enjoy the Kingdom Hearts series, this is just an interesting project that has only been recently unveiled just this past February. As mentioned before, seeing the footage of this game is oddly entertaining. Seeing Sora fight Maleficent's dragon and trying to envision what this looked like on a 2004 phone, it's just kind of hilarious. And also as a side note, by the end of the game, of course you save Donald and Goofy, and I just love how Goofy looks here. I think this just perfectly represents why this was all worth it. Truly, hard work really pays off. Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games 2010. You know guys, here on the Zeepster channel we talk about some real hard-hitting issues. Hard-hitting issues involving a Sonic mobile game from 2010 that basically cut out the Mario section of the games and imported it exclusively to the iPhone, not Android, only for it to be removed almost immediately after its release. Okay, I get it. You may be like, Zeep, why does this matter? Who really cares about Sonic at the Olympic Games for the iPhone? Talk about Angry Birds already. Hey, listen to me. We'll get there. What I'm talking about right now is actually kind of cool, so take a good listen. So first, what do you know about the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games? In 2007, I thought these games were like the coolest things in the world, because there he was, my boy Mario with Sonic, a crossover I really wanted for a long time. And keep in mind, this was before Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out, and before Sonic was officially added to the character roster. So yes, my little 7-year-old mind ran wild. I mean, sure, it wasn't that RPG between Mario and Sonic that I really wanted, but at least they were doing something together, even if it was just participating in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, which at the time I also thought was pretty bizarre. Like, why this? Why Mario and Sonic participating in sports rather than like a story-driven game where they team up to defeat this one big bad guy? So the thing about Sonic at the Olympic Games is that it's actually a sequel to the first one, which came out in 2008 for even older mobile phones. Yeah, you know, like the flip phone ones? Graphically, actually not that bad. I like the sprites they use for Sonic. It reminds me of the Game Boy Advance games. You know, like Sonic Advance, those things were tight. The mini games for Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games are kind of like bare bones, but what do you really expect for like a flip phone game? Now here's the thing for Sonic at the Olympic Games 2008, it's not lost. I can't say the same for its sequel, however, in 2010. That thing was gone for like over a decade. Okay, so this game was made to promote the 2010 Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games in Vancouver, but the thing about this title though is that it was pulled from iOS for no reason at all. We actually have no idea why this was pulled. Apparently, not even after a week of it being available, it was just removed. Despite this, there exists gameplay footage of it. Yeah, it looks like your run-of-the-mill Sonic at the Olympics video game. So we gotta be real here, was much lost? Not really, because it was really just a lackluster port without Mario. Mario probably does not appear in this iOS version of the game, probably because of Nintendo's feelings towards mobile gaming at this time. They weren't 100% on board yet. The game was $4.99 on the App Store, and according to the comments I have seen of the people who did play this game when it came out, it was pretty bad. You know, with it being touchscreen, a lot of gamers had problems even trying to play this game, seeing it was pretty awkward. It makes you wonder, was really much lost if this game just sucked? The game was lost until the year 2019, when a random user was found to have the file for the game, re-uploading it online. It's interesting really, because the person who uploaded the video of them playing the 2010 version of the game said this 13 years ago. When I first saw the iPhone, I never imagined it would ever play games like this. So much can change in so little time. I know we'll continue to see bigger and better games on the iPhone in the future. And yes, we did. In the year 2020, Sega decided to release a sequel to this game, Sonic at the 2020 Olympic Games. And my god, this sequel to this game, the graphics, incredible. The gameplay, way above the days of 2008 on your flip phone. Time moves by fast, everyone. Robot Unicorn Attack. In the late 2000s to early 2010s, Adult Swim was really pushing a series of iOS and Android games. I mean, I thought they were pretty cool. There was one called Amateur Surgeon that I was like obsessed with when I was a kid. Basically, you were this back alley pizza delivery guy who would conduct surgeries on various people, filled with raunchy dialogue, and also a lot of blood. It was basically Trauma Center, but if it was made by Adult Swim. The point I'm trying to get at is that these iOS Adult Swim games were usually pretty good. I mean, I remember in like 2016, me and my friends were obsessed with the game Pocket Mortys, which had an insane amount of care actually put into it. I mean, the various Morty designs, they were pretty cool. That being said, when it comes to Adult Swim games, there is one that had an insane amount of popularity back in the early 2010s, known as Robot Unicorn Attack. Robot Unicorn Attack's gameplay was fairly simple. It basically would be an endless running video game. You would jump around trying to avoid projectiles and falling down, or else you would just explode. And it was insanely popular. In the first week after the game released, the game had garnered over 1 million plays. Yes, the gameplay was simple, but that's the thing about mobile games. The gameplay was addictive. The soundtrack to the game as well was also very fitting. It was very whimsical. It fit jumping around to your doom and exploding. There were also various alternatives to this game, including a Christmas rendition, a heavy metal rendition, alongside also a sequel to the game, which updated the graphics, introduced enemies, various missions, and the option to customize your unicorn. But here's the thing about the second game. So the song in the first game is called Always by Erasure. In the first one, you could just play and listen to the song for free, because that was basically the only song that game had. However, in the second game, they included in-game purchases, and if you wanted to listen to that song while playing the game, you'd have to buy it for $1. Once a main part of the original game, it was not part of the default package for the sequel, which had a couple people pissed off. A reviewer of the game wrote, "I will never be able to separate Always from Robot Unicorn Attack. I can't even imagine wanting to do such a thing. It would be like decapitating the Mona Lisa. It merges with the sparkles of sound effects and the explosions of light and makes it complete." Okay, so the reason why the song is not included with the base game is because Adult Swim wanted to make the sequel for free, but in order to do that, they had to cut out Always because of copyright and only include it as an in-game purchase. But yeah, people got upset, although it was like $1 to buy the song. That being said, the nostalgia for this game is through the roof. I mean, if you look up the main song Always, the video for it on YouTube has over 3.5 million views. So, what ended up happening to this game? Well, as of 2023, both the first and second games are unable to be downloaded on the iOS, and there are two theories for this. The first is, well, Flash, the program used to make the art style for the game, ended up dying off, leading to Apple to drop support for the game, effectively abandoning it, and Adult Swim pulling it off the iOS and Android shelves. The other theory, well, it bashes on the Pocket Mortys game I discussed earlier. So alongside removing all their older games, which were free, the theory states that Adult Swim is only focusing on microtransactions, that a ton of the Pocket Mortys game, and rather than spending money trying to keep these games up on the App Store, they would rather continue to make money and release games in where in-app purchases are highly endorsed. Now, to those who do watch Adult Swim, they'd probably think like, there is no way Adult Swim removed these games just because they're no longer to make money off of them, right? Well, it is unfortunately definitely possible. The unfortunate truth here is that Unicorn Attack meant a lot to so many people. I mean, just look at the comments on this video. They go on and on, stating that the song Always reminded them of a time of their childhood and where they felt really happy. This game, which you could no longer download on your phone, although simple, meant a lot to all these people. And although you could play it on the PC again on like an emulator, it just really isn't the same when you're not playing it on your phone. Why take away all these memories from these people? Well, it all comes down to simply just money. Infinity Blade. So before Fortnite was Epic Games' flagship title, there was this little game titled Infinity Blade. And by little I mean this game was huge. There were 2 sequels, multiple books, an entire fan base for this. My first impression of this game was it really being displayed as a game to show off what the iPhone is capable of graphically. An action RPG, the game came out in December of 2010, being the first iOS game to run on the Unreal Engine. Basically meaning that this game was going to have better graphics than your usual iOS game. The game would get constant 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10s across the board, and holy shit, looking at like gameplay footage of this is like pretty legit. The voice acting, the gameplay, it's wild that this came out in 2010 for the iPhone. Yes, the gameplay may be fairly simple, but I think that works for this iPhone game, especially considering the controls. You're using a touchscreen for combat. I believe it has to be simple, or else the entire thing would be chaotic and not really work too well. It was kind of tactical. You could be as defensive as you wanted to be, or you could go chaotic mode and just keep on swiping and see what happens. That's what made the game fairly entertaining. It was kind of like a different experience every time you fought. So just by looking at it, you would know that this is a fantasy game. And personally, those games aren't really my cup of tea, but I do have a friend who was obsessed with this game when they were a kid, and they were really engrossed with the world. So yes, the game was popular, you get it. It was advanced, you also understand that too. But over the years, Infinity Blade unfortunately became less and less popular. To critics, they saw Infinity Blade as a fad, as more of a tech demo to show what the iPhone can do. But to others, it meant a lot to them. Some would even go as far to state that without Infinity Blade and another iOS game titled Angry Birds, the push for mobile games in the early 2010s would not have been as fierce. So with such a high level of importance, what happened to Infinity Blade? Well, in 2018, the game Fortnite exploded in popularity. It was by far the Epic Games Company's biggest title. Without warning, on December 2018, Epic Games removed the entire Infinity Blade trilogy, all the while releasing a statement stating that, at Epic, we strive to put players first and to provide a supported, full-fledged experience in every game we publish. It has become increasingly difficult for our team to support the Infinity Blade series at a level that meets our standards. Here's the thing, a lot of people weren't buying this reasoning. Yes, they were stating that they wanted to provide a full-fledged video game experience when it came to Infinity Blade, but with that in mind, what was the point of removing it? I mean, sure, you're no longer going to update the game anymore or have any more sequels, but that doesn't mean you have to remove the original trilogy, right? They could still be up there. The actual reasoning for Infinity Blade's removal was because of Fortnite's immense success. Because of Fortnite, Epic became one of the biggest developers of all time, even trying to create an effort to rival Valve's Steam in distributing PC games with its very own store. The simple matter of the fact is that Infinity Blade was bringing in no more money. It cost money to keep the game up on iOS, unlike Fortnite, which was bringing in the dough every day. Around the same time, Epic Games shut down the game Paragon, a game similar in vein of League of Legends, which was shut down due to Epic wanting to expand the Battle Royale game of Fortnite. Funds, and most importantly focus, shifted completely to one game in particular. Infinity Blade, which arguably set the framework for Fortnite to run so well on mobile, had died. Without warning, all the Infinity Blade games were removed on the App Store. However, a couple days later, in December of 2018, an iconic item from the Infinity Blade series appeared in Fortnite, as a tribute to the game that put Epic on the map. However, as the days went by, complaints about balancing issues due to the overpoweredness of this weapon became rampant. Epic pulled the Infinity Blade from the game. However, a few days after its removal, the blade was still appearing in random matches of the game, refusing to die, almost as if Infinity Blade was extending one middle finger towards its developers. Rest in peace, Infinity Blade. Let's get on to the next one. Angry Birds Space. Okay, so Angry Birds. It's been pretty big in the news recently. The CEO of the developer company behind Angry Birds, Rovio, once stated that console games were dead, and that mobile gaming was on the way in. Keep in mind, this was in 2011 when mobile gaming was at its peak, and Angry Birds was taking the world by storm. To say Angry Birds was big is an understatement. It basically saved Rovio from going bankrupt with simple gameplay mechanics that just involved you flicking your finger. You see, at the time, the swine flu epidemic was all in the news. In 2009, pigs were seen as the enemies that carried around this wicked virus. Hence, the birds' enemies are pigs. At first, the game didn't sell too well, but as a couple months went by, the game exploded. After being #1 on the UK App Store in early 2010, suddenly Rovio was back on the map. With such massive success, sequels were in order. Suddenly, we had titles such as Angry Birds Seasons, Angry Birds Rio, Angry Birds Friends. All these titles, although slightly different, followed the main Angry Birds gameplay formula. This was until March of 2012, when the game Angry Birds Space came out. Yo, this was actually pretty cool. So there's no longer a flat stage in this Angry Birds game. Instead, you're playing on various planets with a gravitational field that changes up the physics dynamics of the game. Dude, they even got a real astronaut to talk about Angry Birds Space while in space.
And of course, Pig is the arch enemy of Angry Bird. And Angry Bird had some eggs.
They even took part in adding a slingshot to the Seattle Space Needle with the red bird on it. The game contains various variations of the existing bird characters, essentially their alter egos while in space. Once the game was finally released, critics scored it highly, being raved as the most ambitious Angry Birds project thus far. In the years that followed, even more Angry Birds titles released, including even 2 Angry Birds movies, and even an official sequel to the first Angry Birds, titled Angry Birds 2, in July of 2015, followed by a lot of spin-offs. The reality was that Rovio did not need to develop any other game because Angry Birds was a cash cow. Problem was, it was too much of a cash cow. The original titles such as Angry Birds Space, Angry Birds Rio 1 and 2, and even the original Angry Birds were deleted off the App Store to make way for the new games that were being released. The original titles were getting too much action that was being deterred away from the sequel games that Rovio decided to step in and remove them. Rovio did not want fans to spend money on the first game. They wanted them to spend money on the second game, which contained multiple microtransactions. Why let the fans buy the first game, which has everything all there, not requiring you to buy anything to get extra content, and instead make fans buy a second game, which requires you to buy stuff in order to get the full experience? Angry Birds Space was just one of the many casualties of the new games they're constantly pushing out. It comes down to this simple fact: Rovio cannot accept that people like the classic games more than the modern ones. The original games of the early 2010s that were part of so many childhoods, taken away for grade. To make it even more insulting, a couple years later, they brought back the original Angry Birds on the App Store. It may have seemed at first that they came to their senses, correct? Well, by the end of February, they decided to gut the game yet again and release a statement. We have reviewed the business case of Rovio Classics Angry Birds, and due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio, we have decided that Rovio Classics Angry Birds will be unlisted from the Google Play Store on Thursday, February 23rd. Additionally, the game will be renamed to Red's Fist Fight in the App Store, pending further review. So there it is, the entire reasoning right there. Not even trying to hide it. At least they're explicit about it, right? I think it's even more insulting that they're changing the name of the app, because due to their reasoning, they want to hide this game and shift all potential players onto their modern titles. This entire practice that I've covered all throughout the video is frankly disappointing and depressing to all those who have these games in their childhood. I've been Zeepsterd. Like the video, subscribe. I love you guys. Until the next one.